David, a week to review and recover from Harrogate. Firstly, what positives can you take away from that game?
I think the fact that it wasn't like us to lose a lead. That's the first thing to say. We're not normally like that. I thought we did well enough. I thought we played well enough in patches without doing it often enough. So we knew that there was spells where we were good enough. And if truth be told, I can't actually remember them opening us up or creating a chance. However, you concede 2 goals. So positives being that we're fairly tight defensively, even though the sort of goals against column suggests otherwise. And we had our moments. We scored 2 very good goals. So there were lots of positives, but then ultimately at this stage of the season it's about results and not performances. But we all always know that if you play well, you've got a great chance of winning the game. And it was a crazy 5 minutes that cost us the game. So all in all, it was quite pleasing, other than the result, and it shouldn't have come to what it was. So it shows how far we've come. Like I said after the game, that we're disappointed with only a draw. So plenty to take away. And plenty to work on, as there always is, and it's just another week where we've got to get better and progress. That's been our sort of philosophy, if you like, our work philosophy all year. Get better than the previous day, get better than the previous game, and this week's been no different.
Touching on Kieran Green, obviously scored that world-class goal. That's 4 in 4 for him. I know you always say you don't want goals just from one player, you want it from many. It's good to see him contributing consistently now.
Yeah, look, we want him from everyone. That's the point of the sort of like how we play, that we can score goals from everywhere, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to keep doing that. Obviously, at the minute Green, like I say, has got 4 in 4. His goal at the weekend is certainly the best one I've ever seen live, and we hope he carries on for the next 4 games and hopefully more. He's in obviously a decent vein of form, but we can't just rely on him, and we won't just rely on him. And that's. But we hope he does carry on scoring.
Yeah, hopefully not everyone has to be from 70 yards, but
no, you don't get many of them, that's for sure. He probably won't score another one of them in his career. It was that good a goal. It was a fabulous strike. It was enough to win any game, and unfortunately it didn't. But take nothing away from the skill and the technical expertise that you've got to have to execute a goal like that. It was terrific. I have to say, as was Jason's. Jason was equally impressive technically, although it was about 300 yards closer to the goal.
Back at BP tomorrow. We've won our last 2 there. I'm sure you're hoping to keep that positive momentum at home and in front of what's going to be a good crowd. Yeah, look, we've been good at home recently, as you just said. I think we've been good at home by and large since the turn of the year. And I think the fans have sort of maybe got some decent performances to sort of get behind the lads. It's going to be a big crowd. We want it to be a big crowd. We want something to play for. We want every fan to get behind us as they normally do. Like I said, I thought the last home game, I thought they were ready to go. I thought a few games ago when we played Notts County, the crowd, I turned around to Sean after about 20 minutes. I said, the crowd are ready to go here. We score, they're going here. You could smell it. You could feel it. You can feel them atmospheres. We want another atmosphere like that on Friday, because they can make a difference. I've said it a while. I was listening to the radio about Anfield, Villa Park, these European nights, and how the history is different players going back years and years and years, and it's because the people, it's because the fans, because of what they've seen and what they can make it, and our fans have been brilliant, and we want them to make it. I spoke when I first come to the club about making it a bit of a cauldron, and I appreciate it's a bit of a stretch from Villa Park to Anfield, in some people's imaginations, but in our own way, making it as difficult as it can be for opposition teams, and hopefully we can do that as one club on Friday afternoon. A big positive to touch on as well from Harrogate. It's nice to see Chaz Vernon get some minutes. He's an exciting player. Yeah. He's a player that's going to get fans off their seats. I'm sure you're hoping he can do that between now and the end of the season. Yeah, look, we've got to be a bit careful with Chaz. We know that. We've got to sort of wrap him in cotton wool. We don't want to push him too hard, too far, too fast. It's great to see him back on the pitch. As with players in his situation, you have to be really, really careful not to push him too quickly. Hopefully we've got a few more than 4 games left. That's obviously the plan. And
and we've got to make sure that we aren't reckless. We can't guarantee that, obviously. But at the same time, we can't just plan recklessly not to. Sort of throw him under the bus a bit physically. That's what we've got to do. We've got to plan for, and make sure that he is treated properly. Not that we don't treat anyone properly, obviously. That's not the point. But we've got to get the most out of him, and without breaking him. Really, that's the truth. Because he's a good player, like you say, and he can make a difference.
Yeah. Swindon next for us, second most informed side. We're fourth in the form table, so it's going to be a clash of two informed teams, isn't it?
Yeah, look, Swindon have picked up since the manager went in before Christmas. They've got some good players. We know it'll be a challenge. They're always a test. There's no gimmies in League Two. Certainly not a gimme on Friday, that's for sure. We know that they've got some good players, and we know they've got some weaknesses, and we've got to expose their weaknesses, as is always the case. I'll always back the players, and I think we're seventh in the league. It's all in our hands, and the players have backed themselves over the course of the season, and it's not going to change for the next 4 games. So, be better than your opposite number, be better than the opposition as a whole, and score some goals. That's the plan.
Last time we played Swindon at BP, you'll remember it was 2-0. Donovan Wilson with that cracking effort. Last time we played them away, it was a bit of a different story. It wasn't the most enjoyable afternoon. So, like you say, I'm sure it's going to be one the lads are going to be fired up for, to try and continue that consistency at BP. Yeah,
I think Swindon away was one of our disappointing performances. We obviously had a ridiculous amount of illness in the camp, but take nothing away from Swindon, they were better than us on the day, without a shadow of a doubt. We've got to make sure we turn up. I've said many times, if we turn up, we'll match anyone in the league. We've got to make sure we turn up. It's as simple as that. They'll ask lots of questions. People are coming to. Whoever it is coming to our stadium, we've got to give a good account of ourselves, and Friday's another opportunity to do that.
And they showed in their last game, obviously a bit of a different one with Bradford getting a man sent off, and one of the most dramatic games of the season, wasn't it? That they can really come, they know where the back of the net is.
Yeah, look, they can score goals, they can concede goals. They're a bit helter-skelter, but we've got to make sure that whatever we're faced with, they won't go quietly. That's for sure. They fight for every ball, and they fight until the final whistle. So we've got to make sure that we take the game to them as well. And if that's the case, then that's the plan.
And I know you touched on it a couple of questions back, but final rallying message: we want to pack the park. We want to make it, like you say, that cauldron and intimidating place to come. You've played her as a player. You said how difficult it is.
Yeah.
We want to make it like that tomorrow, don't we? What's your message to the fans?
Yeah, look, get behind us, stick with us. I think they've been magnificent all season. I think when I first come to the club, I spoke about being on a journey, and the next few weeks might be special. There might not be, I don't know. That's football. We're not getting ahead of ourselves, but get yourself down. Get yourself down to the ground, and bring your singing voice, because you might just see what happened in the playoff campaign in the National League with 3 last-minute goals. You just don't know. So, that's where we're at, and we need every one of them, every supporter, every fan, every man, woman, child, and baby in the ground as much as we can, so that we get behind whichever 11 players are on the pitch, so that we can hopefully get over the line with 3 points.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thanks.